Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. When someone's been around the block a while, they can usually speak wisdom into our life. Today, we're going to learn some success secrets of a 50-year real estate entrepreneur with great stories of dedication, ambition, and grit. Today, on the Real Estate Guys radio program. All aboard! Registration is open for the Real Estate Guys 22nd Annual Investor Summit. Imagine spending more than a week with like-minded investors, world-class educators, and real-world professionals. Returning in 2024 is the editor of the Gold newsletter, Brian London, real estate developer Beth Clifford, and the rebel capitalist George Gammon. Back with us in 2024, sales legend and best-selling author Tom Hopkins. And joining us live and in person for his 12th Investor Summit, Ken McElroy. Plus 2 brand new faculty members we can't even mention yet, and a lot more. It all begins June 13th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Visit investorsummitatc.com to get all the details and reserve your spot. This transformational week is like no conference you've ever attended. Go to investorsummitatc.com and make plans to spend a week with the Real Estate Guys, Ken McElroy, Tom Hopkins, and an all-star faculty on the 22nd Annual Investor Summit at Sea. Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms, and joining me, it's Russell Gray, our financial strategist.
Hey, Robert.
There are so many great things about hanging out with young entrepreneurs. I just spent the weekend at the Multifamily Investor Network event, met lots of great folks of all ages, but you know, the enthusiasm and the excitement that young people have, plus their knowledge of things like technology is great. But I will tell you, every now and then, you need an old guy to put everything in perspective.
Well, I think you need both. I think one of the disservices that our society has done is we've separated generations. We grow up in these school systems where everybody's segregated by age and group, and there's not a lot of mixing and mingling, and I think that's tough. You know, the old one-room schoolhouse days when a whole family worked together, and you've got kids 2 years old out there, 3 years old, working with teenagers, and everybody just kind of intermingles. I think that's really important. I do think that the older, wiser people, especially when you're going through times like we're going through today, when there's a lot of rapid change, and sometimes you think, oh my gosh, this world's never seen this before. And then you think back, and unfortunately, I'm on the older side of life now, and I can remember a lot of things. We talk about those things that I've even seen in my lifetime, much less what my parents and their parents saw in terms of world wars and instability and collapsing of financial systems and stock market implosions. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So when you can get around someone who's been there, done that, and they put a calming perspective on what's going on, and they realize that these things are all passing, and you got to pass through them. You don't get to avoid them. But there's always opportunity and sunshine on the back end of it. So it's always a great joy to talk with some older folks.
Our guest today is a visionary leader who started Remax International more than 50 years ago. He's had an incredible life, been through ups and downs and a lot more in between. When we come back, you'll meet Dave Liniger today on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Hey everybody, it's Ken McElroy, and I'm on with the Real Estate Guys, and I'm very excited to be a guest and a speaker at the Investor Summit coming up. If you haven't signed up, be sure to do so.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, now in our 28th year of broadcast. You have picked an excellent show. The gentleman you're about to meet started a company more than 50 years ago, so we think 28 years is a long time. 50 years ago, and it has become a household name. Please welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program the co-founder of Remax International, Mr. Dave Liniger. Hey, Dave.
Good morning. Hey, it's nice to be on your show.
Great to have you back. And a lot has been going on in real estate, and I certainly want to talk about your opinion on that. A few times you've been on our radio show near the beginning of the year where you make your forecasts and so forth. Not going to put you on the spot for that, but so many changes. You think about just what life was like when you started Remax in the early 70s, and you guys made a substantial change to the way that brokerage was done. Now, fast forward all these years, and we've seen all kinds of changes and all kinds of companies and compensation plans. Where do you think we're headed to in terms of the real estate industry?
Well, I think that this is a natural evolution of a profession that's becoming more professional. not at the rate that we'd like to see. We still have brokers out there that will hire anybody because everybody has a next door neighbor, a friend, or a mother. An amazing thing from Consumer Federation report a few days ago, 50% of the agents in the United States haven't done a single transaction in 1 year.
Wow.
So it's the 80-20 rule. 20% of the great agents do 80% of the business.
It's always been like that. And I mean, that was kind of at the core of your founding Remax. And over the years, you've attracted top producers because not just of the compensation model, but because of the training and the camaraderie and all those things. And I don't see the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule changing. So how's it going to be that those 20% of the agents kind of get to that next level? Sales are down, interest rates are up. It's such an interesting time to be in real estate.
Well, we faced a lot of challenges. When we started the company 51 years ago now, there's a single-page listing form, 2-page FHA VA form. There's no such things as buyer agency, dual agency. There was no national real estate companies at the time. There were a lot of regional giants. No public companies. There was one professional designation. Now there are over 100. NAR has changed from an owner, broker of the business, was the only one that could call themselves a realtor, and you worked in a realtor's office. But as an agent, you were not a realtor. And then NAR figured out in the early 70s, hey, if we gave the title to everybody, we could collect dues from everybody. And overnight, they broadened their breadth of dues collection by about 85 or 90%. That, of course, fueled more products, more services, more political involvement, or whatever it might be. I have an interesting comment to make. Everybody's asked me about how has Remax become so successful?
Right.
And for probably 45 years, I said, well, it's basically the quality of our agents. They have twice the experience, 3 times the experience. We have twice the production. Our people have average of 15 years experience in the business. We don't have the part-timers. We have a very limited number of beginners, usually on a team. And so they're the best. And you have to throw in great leadership of our owners, great leadership of the headquarters. We've done a phenomenal job. But over the last 2 or 3 years, especially with COVID, I started an inspection and I started looking at all the things we went through. And that's 9 presidencies. 2 are crooked as hell. A couple were pretty stupid. A couple were pretty good. The rest were bland. So different administrations, different political climate. We made money in all those markets. This is realistically 7 solid recessions, and we're probably in one now. And so the recessions made us change our business practices. 1973, first oil embargo. And all of a sudden, realtors couldn't get gasoline like everybody else. But 1980s, you had your second oil embargo. You had the savings and loan crisis where 60% of the savings and loans went bankrupt within a 2-year time period. Hundreds of thousands of foreclosures. Fast forward, a couple more recessions right at the same time as 1980s, trying to cut back inflation. The interest rates changed from 7% to 17.5%.
Yeah.
And then, of course, within 2 years, the interest rates went back down, and anybody that bought it to 17% refinanced. And then you go to the real factor, which was the financial crisis of 2007. NAR dropped from 1.5 million paying members to 800,000. We ended up with a very tremendous amount of foreclosures, short sales, etc. When I started analyzing Remax's success, yes, it is the quality of the people. But if you remember, a lot of people will say Darwin said the strongest of the species survives. That is not what Darwin said. Darwin said the most adaptable of the species survives. The dinosaurs were here 100 million years ago, and they're gone. The mosquito is still here. And so I think what it comes down to for real estate professionals or investors, either way, if you're in the real estate industry, it is how adaptable are you to change? And what's happening is change is accelerating at a faster and faster rate just like the power of the internet and social media is accelerating at a faster and faster rate. And so it's this adaptability of not looking off saying, I wish it was the way it used to be, because it's not going to be that way. You can't do yesterday's business today and expect to be in business tomorrow.
I love that, boy. And it's not just that, there's a lot of folks saying, hey, everything's changed and AI is going to revolutionize real estate and now brokers are going to have to behave differently and all that. But coming from a guy who's been through all of those changes and, quite frankly, adapted well. I mean, you guys were on the forefront of the franchise model. You're on the forefront of integrating mortgage. I mean, there's just so many things, the big annual event, all of that. And now here we are. And again, the NAR paid membership numbers are down. Not surprising, given the fact that you shared with us that there's a lot of folks out there haven't even seen a commission check in a year. But these are also the times, I think, that kind of weed out the less professional, the less serious, the less committed. So can you speak to that? You've been through some real adversity, not just in business, that's true, but in your personal life, and maybe we'll get a little bit to that story. But how does someone start right now with all the doom and the gloom and the headwinds and still make a go of this?
In 1973, when I started Remax, I had just gotten out of the military. I spent 5 years in the Air Force. While I was in the Air Force, I started buying and investing in single-family houses, and I eventually got a real estate license to save the commission on my investments. I had no intention of trying to sell a house. Somewhere along the line, I looked at these old fools in this office I had my license at, and they were old, man. Some of them were 45, 55 years old.
Wow.
And I'm 20. And I'm looking at these fools and I'm thinking, well, if they can sell something, I could probably sell something. And so the die was cast. As we get started with Remax, I had an advantage in that I was stupid. I was naive. I didn't know what a recession was. I'd gone to college for 2.5, 3 semesters. I hadn't done well at it. I was immature. I didn't have self-discipline. The military helped me. It gave me 5 years to grow up. I got to be around real leaders, real heroes. I learned discipline, and all of a sudden, I was able to take those life tools and put them into starting a business. I think if I had a college education and MBA in a recession with the oil embargo, I would have said, hey, this is the wrong time to start. In reality, all I knew was I knew people that needed to sell their house, and I knew people that wanted to buy a house, and I knew people that liked me. And so you go to work and you make do with the circumstances. You can't sit here and let somebody else dictate your future.
That is such a world-class answer. And, it harkens back a little bit to the fact that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Last time we had you on the show for a full interview, it's when your book came out, My Next Step. And if you've not read My Next Step by Dave Liniger, I'm going to suggest strongly you get that book right away and read it next. If you're like me, you got a bunch of books you order and they sit in a pile. Read this book, because it's not about real estate. It is about overcoming tremendous adversity. It's about perseverance, about being driven. And Dave, just your candor in that book is amazing. And folks can go back in the archives, and on our radio program, they can hear that interview. But here we are 10 years later. When we met, you were in a wheelchair. You were recovering from this devastating personal health challenge. And there were folks that weren't sure you were going to pull out. And here we are 10 years later. You look great. You sound great. Give us a perspective from someone who's just been through the ringer and lived to tell about it.
Well, I went to a hospital thinking I was going to have back surgery and woke up 3 months later after being in a coma and flatlining for 3 months. I woke up a quadriplegic. They discovered within the first 2 or 3 days before the surgery that my body was infected with MRSA. It's a staph infection that occurs very often in military people that were exposed to Agent Orange. If you're young and healthy and a good immune system, you didn't get anything until you're 65 or 70 when your immune system starts to drop. If you're unhealthy, you start having cancer and so on when you're 25 and 26 years old. So it hit me when I was late 60s. I woke up a quad. They did all of the nerve analysis 8 different doctors, 8 different specialists said that I was going to be a quad the rest of my life. And I told them, I'm not. I know how to win. And I'm walking out of this place. And they were very distraught because they said, we have psychiatry people that are going to help you live with your disability. And I said, I don't need to talk to them. I didn't talk to them when I came back from Vietnam.
Yeah.
So I went to my nurses and my therapists, and I said, I don't quit. I've had a lifetime of success and lots of failures along the way. I want you to push me harder than any patient you've ever pushed, and I will not let you down. And that's your job, is don't let me back up. I'm burning my bridges. I'm telling you, I'm the strongest son of a bitch you ever met in your life, and I'm going to prove it. Help me prove it. And by golly, the doctors gave up on me. The nurses and therapists said, we like your attitude. It took months and months. And I can remember early on, psychiatrists looked at me and I said, Doc, can you tell me what's my mental capacity right now? And he said, well, you're about maybe 6 years old. And I said, okay. 4 months later, just before I was getting ready to come home as a quad, I said, what do you think my mental capacity is now? And he says, oh, we're excited. You're up to a high school graduate.
Wow.
And I said, Doc, don't be too proud. I didn't make it in college. This is all we got. I learned lots of things from that. I learned a lot of humility. I learned confidence over my life. Courage comes from confidence. Confidence comes from experience. And I had achieved tremendous successes and a handful of disasters. You learn from them, shake it off, pick up yourself, get off the mat, and then try it again. I found out how kind people are. Well, an electric wheelchair I still use once in a while because of the back injury and the pain. When I first got started, it was pretty awkward. And when I was out in the public, I'd get to a door that wasn't handicap accessible and I couldn't get it open. And everybody would jump up and say, can I help you? I had gangbangers that you'd look at and say, I don't want to be alone with you. And they'd smile and they'd say, sir, let me help you there. And so people are basically good. They really are. You get cut off in the traffic and you throw the person the bird, they honk their horn at you. Maybe that was the person that pulled your wife out of an airplane crash and saved her life once. And he's a real hero, but today he's having a bad day. And so you just learn to roll with the flow. And I can tell you this, I'm writing a paper about what I've done since I died.
Wow.
And so I flatlined on Valentine's Day, CPR and all that stuff. They ruined my vocal cords when they pulled the breathing tubes and stuff out of my throat. I had to learn how to speak again. I still don't have a great voice. I sound like Edward R. Murrow after a cigar and a scotch, I guess. But the thing that's just fascinating is pick yourself up and keep going. I'm very proud of the fact that since I was injured, within a year, I was getting around. It took me a year to get over being a quad, very feeble. I got stronger and stronger. I was delighted to take Remax public in 2013. That's quite an achievement.
Yeah.
In 2015, a lifelong dream, I bought a 3,500 acre ranch in northern Colorado. I've started 15 or 16 more businesses, 2 or 3 more franchise networks. Life is good. I think about the people that saved me. As you know, I'm quite a philanthropist, and everybody would have done well if I died. But the fact that my estate kept getting bigger and I had more money to give every year is I've been able to say, I've enjoyed my business success. I've enjoyed my friendships and my marriage and my children. And now I really enjoy helping people take their next step.
Well, I just love the inspiration behind that and real words of wisdom. And you just got a taste of what the book's about, but there are so many lessons. So that was the book that came out 10 years ago, My Next Step. We got a chance to hang out a little bit afterwards, and it brings up one of the philanthropy things that I wasn't going to talk about, but having a chance to play at your extraordinary golf course, Sanctuary, which is not only just a beautiful, beautiful place, but it's a tool that you've used for years in philanthropy in a really cool way. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I took up golf at an older age. It's unfortunate I wasn't young and flexible, and I was never tall and handsome or anything. And so I'm not built to be a golfer. I should probably be a wrestler or something. But I watched these fools batting the ball, and one day I finally gave up. I lived on a great golf course, Castle Pines International, and I used to walk the course all the time for my health. And finally I went up and to the less expensive course and said, do you have an assistant pro or somebody that could take me out for 9 holes and tell me what this is about? Everybody seems to love it, and I think it's kind of a sissy sport. I drive race cars, I skydive, I have a fighter jet, and I'm kind of a manly man, you know?
Yeah.
They got me a beer drinking young dude about 26 or 27. We got a 6-pack of beer, and 9 holes later, I was hooked.
Yeah.
It was like maybe I got one good shot out of 10, but that one good shot was just, wow. And he says, yeah, with the practice, you get a bunch of those good shots.
Yep.
And so I joined a bunch of courses. I found a marvelous piece of dirt. Unbelievable. You've been to Sanctuary. We built it. And after I built it, my architect kept saying, what are you going to do with it? And I said, well, I don't want to be a public course. And, you know, country clubs are nice, but I don't necessarily want to be a country club. I said, how about if we let it sit and grow for a year? He says, if you can afford it, it will mature much faster and much better. And it's very mountainous. It's definitely a mountain course. We took care of it. During that year, the Remax agents in the state started hitting me up, can I do a charity tournament? And I'd been to charity tournaments without playing before. And so by August, the year it was growing in, we set up a system. We told we were available for charity tournaments. We were going to choose 12. You don't have to pay to be here. You get free greens fees, free cart fees. You do have to buy your food and booze from us and the souvenir shop if you want a hat or a shirt. And we received several hundred applications. Now, I always thought that I was a good person. United Way came, I wrote a check. The church needed money, I wrote a check. But I was building an empire, and I never looked at what the community's needs were. And so it was fascinating. We divided them up into 4 groups, medical emergencies, education, whatever they were. And so we looked at each application. Some were pretty dumb. A girls' softball team that wanted to go to the Nationals, and they were trying to raise $5,000. Some was Children's Hospital, and they had a record of making $250,000 a tournament. And so we selected the 12. The least any of them netted was $100,000. Of course, the course was famous the day that it opened, a private course with no members. And we only play about 8,400 rounds a year. And of that, 7,000 rounds are charitable. So end result, 20-some years later, we opened in 97. We've raised almost $200 million net for the charities in Colorado, plus other national charities. It's been an amazing adventure. Gail and I didn't put the money in it. We built it. We made it available. It was all done by golfers and companies who wanted to sponsor the tournament, get their name out there, and people that desperately wanted to play a foursome of one of the top courses in the world.
An amazing story in just so many ways of how somebody can have an effect and make a dent in the world. And sure, you can make a lot of money and you should write checks to great deserving organizations, and that's all good. But to take your resources and figure out a way to create a tool, in this case, an amazing golf course, that allows hundreds of folks to raise millions and millions of dollars, that's extraordinary. So thanks, Dave, for sharing that personal story. Our guest is Dave Liniger, co-founder of Remax. We'll hear more from Dave and learn about his new book when we come back. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Need help with your real estate investment portfolio? Check out the resources page at realestateguysradio.com.
Hey, it's Robert Helms. Thanks so much for listening to the show today. I want to personally invite you to come see an amazing real estate market that combines excellent cash flow, offshore diversification, and what we affectionately call lifestyle investing. Come join me from July 19th to the 22nd in the beautiful country of Belize. The Real Estate Guys have been bringing investors to Belize for more than 18 years now, and our discovery trip is designed to show you the market like nobody else can. Sure, Belize is breathtakingly beautiful, the people are wonderful, and wait till you taste the food. But the real opportunity is the real estate investment potential. There's all kinds of opportunity in Belize when it comes to real estate, including both long and short-term rentals, commercial and retail triple net properties, business opportunities, land acquisition, development, agriculture, and more. And as the only country in Latin America with English as its official language, it's easy to understand the law. Property rights are strong, and contracts are in English. And in the top tourist market, a unique situation exists where demand for rentals continues to outstrip supply, creating a compelling environment for investors. So come see for yourself. Join me July 19th to 22nd in Ambergris Caye, Belize, as we study the market, learn about the sustainable drivers, and tour lots of beautiful real estate. And like all of our field trips, there are no properties for sale during the weekend. Rather, you'll meet lots of local providers that will help educate you about the market so that you can follow up with them after the trip if the market is interesting to you. You've heard about Belize on the Real Estate Guys for all these years? Now come see what all the excitement is about. Plus, we'll have lots of time over meals and activities to talk about all things real estate. To get the details, go to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click on Events, where you'll find the Belize Discovery Trip. Once you register, you'll get information about our group hotel rates as well as travel details. So join me in Belize, July 19th to 22nd. It's a beautiful country with lots of amazing possibilities, and the only thing missing is you. Go to realestateguysradio.com under Events, and I look forward to seeing you in beautiful Belize.
Hi, guys. My name is George Gammon from the Rebel Capitalist Show, and you are listening to the Real Estate Guys, my favorite podcast when it comes to macroeconomics and real estate investing.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Thanks for tuning into the show. I think you deserve a trip. Yep, you deserve a trip to beautiful Belize. It's time to join the Real Estate Guys for our discovery trip. Well, you'll see a fabulous real estate market with all kinds of possibilities. It's coming up in July. Get all the details on the website at realestateguysradio.com under Events. We're talking with Dave Liniger, the co-founder of Remax International. Before we get back to that discussion, it's time to play Real Estate Trivia. Your chance to win a prize by knowing today's trivia question, which has something to do with real estate. As soon as you hear the question and think you might know the answer, send your best guess to trivia at realestateguysradio.com. Trivia at realestateguysradio.com. Give us your name, the answer to the question, and your physical mailing address. Because if you're the first to get it right, I'm going to send you a copy of Dave's awesome book, My Next Step. That can be yours if you know today's real estate trivia question. Last week on the program, we talked about turning a tax problem into a billion-dollar business with Dave Zook. And we asked this: the tomato is the most harvested fruit in the world as of 2020. Which country grows the most tomatoes? Well, the answer, by a lot, is China. They grow 3 times the amount of tomatoes as second place India. And in third place, it's the U.S. Here's our real estate trivia question for this week. How many times will the average American move during their lifetime? Seemed like an appropriate question when we've got the founder of Remax with us. How many times, on average, does an American move in their lifetime? If you know, or you just want to guess, send your best guess to trivia at realestateguysradio.com. Send us your name, the answer to the question, and your physical mailing address. The first person that gets it right gets this awesome book, My Next Step, by Dave Liniger. That's today's real estate trivia question. Now, Dave, you know I'm a big fan of My Next Step, but I'm super excited because you've got a brand new book coming out just around the corner. It's called The Perfect 10. Tell us about it.
The Perfect 10, when you think of gymnasts or you think of platform divers, they do their performance, they do their routine. And like a diver, when they hit the water, they pop back up and they look immediately to the judges, because the judges hold up this card and it has a number on it. And everybody's hoping to get a 10. Getting a 10 from 7 out of 7 judges is almost unheard of. And it might only happen to a gold medal Olympic person 2 or 3 times in their life. So the perfect 10 is meant to be, this is the perfect life. And how do you have a perfect life when there's so many portions to life? There's a lot of people that have made big successful company and their kids hate them. There's a lot of people that have made a lot of money, but they've been through 3 or 4 divorces. There's a lot of people that make money that are morally bankrupt and have no friends, and they screwed everybody they could trying to take everything they could get. And so the question is how do you find the balance that every day you can say, I'm working to making this day a 10 in my work habits, a 10 in my leadership, a 10 in my profitability, a 10 in my personal development, a 10 in my relationships. And so where the book title really came from was in 2017 and 18, Remax did a consumer survey, and it was a very simple question. And that was, we sent a survey to every Remax agent in the United States and a separate one to everyone in Canada. And we said, on a scale of 1 to 10, would you rate us? How likely is it that you would recommend us to a relative or a best friend to work in this office? A 10 is perfect. And so a 9 and 10 are called promoters. 6, 7s, and 8s, they're just there. And 1 through 5 are adversarial. They're detractors. And so you send the survey out and you get the results back. When the results come back, you don't count 6, 7s, and 8s. You count all the positive ones. You subtract from that all the negative ones, and that's your score. The thing that's fascinating was this is being used by hundreds of companies. It's a simple one-question deal. Airlines. When we instituted it that year, United Airlines got a 2. Southwest Airlines got a 62. They flew the same routes. They flew the same Boeing aircraft. They had the same discount fares. And yet one nobody likes, and the other one was kind of quirky, and the stewardesses were happy, joking around and kidding with everybody. The pilots would come out after a bad landing and say, my bad, I just hit the runway a little hard. And everybody likes it. Remaxes came out at 72.
Wow.
That's the same as Google and Amazon and Apple. However, office by office, 75% of the people responded. We had 200 Remax offices of up to 200 agents that gave their broker, leader, manager a perfect 10. Not a single less than 10.
Wow.
We also had 200 that gave their broker a minus.
Oh, wow.
And so there's a second question you can ask. And the second question is, why? About half the time people will answer it. On the ones that got a 10, it was interesting. They'd say, my broker, she's the best in the world. She cares about me and my family. If I have a problem, she's right there to help me. You look at the detractors, and the detractors say, well, I went to my broker who's having a problem with an appraisal. And he said, well, that's your problem. I'm making sales too. You have to solve your own problems. I'm not going to manage you or lead you. And so it's all a difference in what's the perception of the people that you lead. So in putting the book together, I tried to think as an entrepreneur, what were the lessons that I learned over the 55 years or so that I had been in business? We divided them up into 10 major categories, and each one we came up with 10 great ideas. So you get 1,000 ideas based on what your interest is. So you don't have to read the first page to the last page. If you're struggling with leadership, there's probably 80 pages of it, and there's 10 great ideas in there. And so once you look at that, you can start studying, okay, this is where I really need to help. I'm not doing good in this area.
Well, that is phenomenal, and can't wait to get my hands on the book. It comes out near the end of March, and if you want more details about how to get that book into your hot hands, you can find it at all your favorite book outlets, or send an email to perfect10 at realestateguysradio.com, perfect10 at realestateguysradio.com. We'll make sure you can get a copy of that book. Hey, Dave, I also wanted to ask you about your podcast. You've started up a podcast and have some interesting perspective and guests. So tell us about the podcast.
Well, I've avoided social media for the most part for probably 20 years.
Yeah.
I believe in it. I preach it to my agents. It's very important to them. Everybody said, get on Facebook with us, boss. Went on Facebook. I had 10,000 friend requests.
I bet.
And all of a sudden I looked at it and I thought, I'm trying to build this company. And what's the best use of my time is standing on a stage, giving speeches, selling franchises, doing press in New York City. And I'm just not going to get caught in that trap. Well, I'm never going to retire, but I turned the reins over the company to a younger CEO 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
I still own half of Remax. My wife and I are the biggest investors in it. We work about 70 or 80 days a year for Remax, do all the major conventions, all the major broker owner and sales associate events. We do all the planning. We do 3-day board meetings 4 times a year. And so we're very heavily involved in it, but I'm not involved in the day-to-day management, which freed me up to pursue some other ideas, other franchises and other investments. But it also freed me up to say, I do like social media and I do like mentoring people. And so the first step on that was starting a podcast. And the thing that was fascinating is because of Remax's reputation and my reputation, we were able to get incredibly talented people that a beginner podcaster never would have had a chance.
Right.
Like Joan London, she's not just going to do a podcast for anybody, but she did one for me. And I have to tell you, she's one of the most delightful people I've ever met in my life. Since then, we've become quite friendly. I like her family a lot. She likes my family. We have mutual friends. So I'm working with General McChrystal tomorrow,
Wow.
which is pretty cool. He's quite an amazing individual. It is fascinating. I call the podcast Ambition and Grit, and it's basically who has the ambition and the persistence or the grit to go forward with it and never quit. And the success stories are amazing out there. And so it's a feel-good thing, but it's also lots of people have lots of problems and they overcome it. And how did they overcome it? And it's all in the mindset of the individual. And so the podcasts to me are especially fun.
Yes, they sure are. It's great to hear. It's like being an insider on a conversation that you'd like to have anyway with these folks. And when I think of those words, ambition and grit, boy, you come to mind, that's for sure. Hey, Final Jeopardy, I got a couple of questions for you. One, you and Gail have been an amazing couple. You'd started Remax when you weren't a couple, and you became a couple, been married, raised children. I tell you, Gail toured me around your home, and she is just so delightful on every level. And I know the agents have all really, really taken to her over the years. How do you stay married for all these years? There's got to be some distinctions that you could mentor the folks with.
When I hired Gail, she was my first hire. I was looking for an administrative vice president. My feeling was I understood leadership. I certainly understood selling, but I didn't understand the running of a business. And so I interviewed 27 women at the time, turned all 27 down. She was number 28. And in 5 minutes, I decided she could run Remax. She was a trailing spouse, had just gotten married, had moved from St. Louis. She'd worked for Ralston Purina in a management and marketing position. She had her degrees. She was very bright, very charismatic, very confident. And I said, look, I need somebody that could go find office space, decorate it, buy the furniture and the computers, or not at the time, it was typewriters and stuff, hire secretaries and bookkeepers, meet with lawyers and accounting companies, and realistically run the business and let me go out and recruit, give speeches, and be a sales manager. It was just perfect. Over the next 10 years, all 5 or 6 of the officers that started the company with me ended up divorced. We made our mistakes, and that was we fell in love with Remax. We fell in love with our agents and our franchisees. And it was a thrill to stand up on a stage in 1973 and be speaking to maybe, 25 people. And in 1983, stand on a stage and be talking to thousands.
Yeah.
And so the world was against us. We were the band of merry brothers, and we went on to take on the world. And so Gail and I ended up starting to become romantically involved with only people I knew to date was Remax. I had no outside friends. I worked Remax 365 days a year, She was the same way, and it just naturally evolved. I had 4 children from a previous marriage. The divorce was pretty nasty, but amazing through it. The mother was kind to their kids. I was kind to the kids, and the kids have been best friends to both of us ever since. As my kids grew up, I had gotten past this working 18 hours a day, started doing the vacations, the motorhomes, the rafting trips and the ski trips and stuff. And all of a sudden, we were basically a real family. Gail was a surrogate mom to them. They all grew up good, never asked Dad for a dime, helped them with college, but they worked their way through college. They all have their own businesses. They're all quite successful what they do. And so life's good. You can be a wealthy person. You can devote yourself to building an empire, and you can have great family relationships and personal friendships.
It is so true, and that is wealth right there. Hey, we've probably got some folks who are listening that they're new to real estate. Maybe they're new in a career in real estate. Knowing what you now know, might you say to folks who are eager to get started, either in investment or a career in sales?
Well, if it's a career in sales, you got to pick the very best company that will take you. Do bear in mind, lots of companies out there will take anybody. So it's just the nature of our business. They're not going to teach you anything. You want to find as reputable a company as you can that's got as good a reputation as you can and fight tooth and nail to get on. And they'll take somebody that's got the heart and spirit and the grit that they think will stick with it. Picking a good company and a good manager or leader is very important. The second thing you've got to do is you got to learn. Getting a real estate license has nothing to do with selling real estate. It has everything to do with getting a real estate license. And it has nothing to do with dealing with your clients other than being knowledgeable about contracts and appraisals and that type of thing. Personal development is incredibly important.
Yeah.
You have to spend money on yourself. I've heard several motivational speakers say that you should spend 10% of everything you make on personal development. And I'm a firm believer in it. We struggled with Remax to make it work, and I was frustrated. And so we started taking every course we could. American Management Association, realtor courses, management courses, finance courses. It was my money and I was broke. And so I didn't go for the party. I didn't go and sit for 3 days just to take notes, come home and throw the notes on the shelf. I was desperate to figure out, how do I save my company and make it prosper? And if you have that attitude as a real estate agent, you are in business for yourself. And finally, I would tell you that as much as it costs, it pays you money to have a coach. And it's worth it. The coach will hold you accountable. A friend does not hold you accountable. You don't feel like making those 10 cold calls today, so you slough it off. The coach calls you the next day and said, did you make the 10 calls? And then you say, well, I was too busy. And then the coach tells you, well, look, I'm too busy to work with losers. I can't be more serious about your business than you're serious about your business.
Right.
So if you're not serious about your business, stop wasting your money on me, because I don't want to just talk to you and have you just listen. I want you to execute, hold yourself accountable, and I'll keep your feet to the fire. Those things, if you're committed, real estate is the hardest job to learn. But after you've learned it, 5 and 10 years into it, it's the easiest job to make really good money. Because when you're given world-class service, you don't have to go out and beat the bushes to get customers. You get referrals, you get repeats. You don't have to look at all the internet leads and say, which one of these is serious? No, you've got a great supporting cast out there that tells their kids, hey, we bought and sold 3 houses from Dave. Go talk to him. He's a good, honest man. He'll help you. He helped us. When you're pre-sold by somebody like that, you walk into it, it's a perfect relationship, and you make it work.
That is gold. And on the investment side, you started investing before you were selling real estate. What are your thoughts there?
Now, investment side is so huge. What's your desire? What interests you? Do you want to develop? Do you want to build apartment complexes? Or are you not much in money and you just got to get started? Maybe buy a single family house. If you got the ability, fix it up and flip it, or fix it up and rent it, get a better mortgage on it and buy another one. I started based off a book called How I Turned 1,000 into a Million in My Spare Time by William Nickerson.
Right.
And Nickerson was a typical employee, graduated from college. At some point, he found a dilapidated house near his home. Nobody had taken care of it. He went over and made a pretty good offer for it, basically stole it. It wasn't marketable. And he's part-time. He went in and did what he could do. He re-landscaped it, which isn't a big talent. He painted, had carpenters come in and put carpets in. He changed the appliances. And all of a sudden, he doubled it in value. And maybe it only cost him 10% to do that. He went on to buy another one, and then duplexes, and then apartment complexes. And at the height of his business, he had over 1,000 units. And then he went on the speaking tour and wrote the book. The book was a bestseller, and it was used as a property management book in colleges in real estate courses, because it had over half the book was on collecting leases, foreclosing on property, all this stuff. And so I followed that path to success. My goal was 21 single-family houses by the time I was 21. I made that. I sold most of the houses off as I started Remax to keep the company alive. I continued to put money into real estate investments. But each person follows a different track. But you've got to know what you're doing. You can't just step up the door and say, I think I can do this. You need a mentor. You need a plan. You need a budget. It's a business.
Boy, it sure is. Well, there you have it. Extraordinary words of wisdom from a guy who's earned the right to have an opinion. Dave, great catching up with you. Thanks so much for sharing with us today.
Nice to see you again, Robert. Good luck.
You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Live nationwide. You're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com.
If you love real estate and have always wanted to own your own business, listen up. The Real Estate Guys and their panel of experts want to teach you how to go full-time fast in the real estate syndication business. These next few years may go down in history as one of the best times ever to acquire investment real estate. There are deals everywhere if you know where to look and how to assemble the resources. The Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar will show you how to make big money doing big deals from a team of experts that have syndicated projects totaling more than $1 billion. Don't wait for someone to give you a raise or create a job for you. Attend the Secrets of Successful Syndication and learn how to build a team, raise capital, find deals, and make full-time money in 6 months or less. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events. All the big players use syndication as a way to diversify risk, optimize profits, and earn big money. You can too. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events.
Forbes rated Memphis the best cash flow market in the nation. And our good friend Terry Kerr at Mid-South Home Buyers has been the premier turnkey rental property provider in Memphis for over 13 years. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, Terry has renovated over 750 houses. Real Estate Guys listeners have snapped up hundreds. Discover what these satisfied investors already know. Mid-South's properties are completely renovated with a 1-year warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're affordable, well-managed, and easy to own. Perfect for beginning investors and veterans alike. Get in on the action. Contact Terry and his team via email at midsouth@realestateguysradio.com.
Hi, this is Sam Freshman, author of Principles of Real Estate Syndication, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Hey, if you've ever thought about doing bigger deals using other people's money and scaling up in your real estate business, or if you'd like to passively invest along big deals and opportunities, then come on out to the Secrets of Successful Syndication. Happens right around the corner in Dallas, Texas. You can get all the details by sending an email to syndication@realestateguysradio.com. Well, my goodness, what a treasure trove of wisdom from Mr. Dave Liniger.
Yeah, listening to Dave gets me fired up. It reminds me when I was a young salesman in Silicon Valley, and I started my career in the middle of a recession and high interest rates. I didn't have any economic training. I had no idea there was a recession. I didn't understand the impact of interest rates. I had a young wife. I had a young baby. I had a job to do. So I just got up every day and worked. And when he said that, I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that. And then, of course, he talked about the savings and loan crisis and the great financial crisis. Of course, been through that, been through both of those things. And I love the quote about the most adaptable survive. You always hear survival of the fittest, but I thought that was really, really a useful quote in today's world.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we could have gone on for another couple of hours. He just has so much wisdom, not just knowledge, right? Knowledge, what you learn and can remember, but the wisdom of having made difficult decisions. There were times in the history of Remax where things weren't going that well, from a competitive point of view, from a leadership point of view, from a factioning point of view, and the way he's been able to steadfastly help lead that company. Now that some of the younger guys have taken over in the primary roles, still sits at the board of directors, and I'll tell you, that wisdom is helpful. But I wanted to dig into just some of his life lessons as well. When his last book came out, it was so impactful, and that's when we first met him. I first met Dave Liniger. He was in a wheelchair, having recovered from that terrible, terrible issue that he talked about. And probably the most impactful thing, we had met him before his keynote speech. And this was at the R4 conference, which is the annual big Remax event for all the agents. I've never been a Remax agent or associated directly with Remax, but was invited to come to the conference. And I've been a few times over the years. Always impressive, always great speakers. But they had not seen Dave for a few years. And it was a big emotional moment in the world of Remax as he wheeled out in his electric wheelchair. It was just a standing ovation, not a dry eye. Just crazy how much they love this guy. And he talked about his issue and what had happened and the lessons. And so definitely go back and read that book, My Next Step, if you hadn't. At the end of the talk, he did something extraordinary that he warned us when we were backstage with him that he might do, depending on how he felt. And that is, he stood up and walked off stage. He'd only walked a couple of times without any help, but he just felt the moment and he was able to stand up and walk off stage. It gives me goosebumps to this minute thinking about it. But what an amazing, amazing guy.
Well, you can tell that he's tough. And he talked a little bit, and I really related to him talking about his early days and being kind of an ambitious guy, but undisciplined, and then getting into the military and learning discipline. He talked about real heroes. And, I remember playing football a little bit. It wasn't very good, but I really enjoyed it. And you feel like you're a band of brothers and you're going to war. But of course, guys that have really been in war, the guys have really had to learn that life or death discipline where a mistake doesn't just cost you a penalty or first down or a game. It could cost you or your buddy your life. Those guys are tough. And when you can come back and make that adjustment to come back into the civilian world. And I've never done it, but I've talked to guys, and a lot of guys struggle coming back because the level of commitment, the level of intensity, the level of discipline, the level of seriousness about what you're doing is so much greater in that military environment that when they come back to the real world, they just don't have the same commitment. They're not in an environment that demands as much of them. And that was the other thing that he really talked about. He talked about the importance of a coach, a mentor. He talked about picking the right company. And you hear that all the time. And, we spend a lot of time coaching business people. And a lot of times people think a company is a brand because we identify with a company. Oh, I know that company. But you don't know that company. You know the brand. But the company, if you really think about what the word company, like in a military sense, what a company is, it's a group of people. And when you join a company, you're joining a tribe. You're joining a group of people. And I think really what he's saying, the lesson that I took away from that I'm constantly reevaluating in my life all the time, is how do you put yourself in a room where you're with the right people? Not just a brand. The brand could be anything, like the collective inner circle, right? It was inner circle with us, Syndication Mentoring Club. We never talked about it on the show because it was only for people who'd come through syndication and wanted to be in that inner circle, small group, only room for 20. And then Ken and George and Jason had Collective, which was, designed to be a little bit bigger, but it was their mastermind group. And it was all about getting in a room with the right people. And when we merged, all of a sudden it's like, why do you guys do this? It's not even real estate. It's not even syndication. No, it's about getting in a room full of the right people. It's about a company. It's about choosing your tribe. So I really resonated with that when he talked about that because, Kenny says all the time, you want to change your life, change your crowd, change the people you hang around with. And I think most people know that, but they don't know where to go to find that. And he stresses the importance of doing whatever you got to do to find that.
Big thanks to Dave Liniger for sharing his wisdom, which he'll continue to do with his brand new book. It's just about to come out. It's called The Perfect 10. If you'd like details on getting your copy, all you have to do is send an email to perfect10@realestateguysradio.com. perfect10@realestateguysradio.com. If you want to get around a crowd of amazing folks, find out about the Collective Inner Circle, just send an email to collective@realestateguysradio.com. Hey, we got big plans for next week's show. Until then, go out and make some equity happen.
This episode of the Real Estate Guys radio show is brought to you by Paradigm Life. Powerful cash management strategies using life insurance. Learn more at beyourbank.com. Mid-South Home Buyers. Low-cost, turnkey cash flow properties in Memphis, Tennessee. Corporate Direct. Asset protection strategies for real estate investors from attorney and rich dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Find these and other great companies under the Resources tab at realestateguysradio.com. To learn how you can expose your product or service to the Real Estate Guys audience, call 888-489-7723 extension 4. That's 888-489-7723 extension 4. Or use the feedback page at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Real Estate Guys radio show.